Democrats sweep the 2025 off-year elections in a brutal night from Virginia to New York to California. I'm Tony Kinnett, host of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, nationally syndicated at 7 p.m. Eastern.
I'm Tyler O'Neill, senior editor at the Daily Signal.
It is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. We're doing things a little bit differently today for the top news in 10. We're joined by author and excellent analyst Tyler O'Neill here at the Daily Signal. And we're going to break down the aftermath of these particular elections, focusing primarily on Virginia, New Jersey, and the New York City mayoral election. Tyler, how's it going?
Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This was a devastating night for sanity in the United States of America. I mean, in those particular races, you had none other than Jay Jones. I was hoping, I wasn't necessarily expecting Winsome Earl-Sears to prevail against Abigail Spanberger. I mean, the wins were against her. I think Winsome was a great candidate. But at the end of the day, what we saw was, classic radical Democrat with this moderate papering prevailing in Virginia. And that's what is happening with Abigail Spanberger. I spoke with Dave Bratt earlier. Virginia is going to wake up to what it did in electing Abigail Spanberger. And people are going to be really surprised because they're going to get a very radical left governor, and they thought they were electing a moderate. But, one of the biggest surprise to me of the night was Jay Jones. We all know the text messages. We all know not only did he wish death on a Republican Speaker of the House of Delegates, but he also said, he wished that this man's children, his young children, would die in their mother's arms if that would convince him to move on policy. And yet Virginians still elected him the top cop in our state.
Certainly, it was difficult to follow a lot of the Virginia updates. The Attorney General race was called last, right after 10 p.m. Eastern. Miyares, the incumbent Republican, had a lot of momentum. In fact, so that the decision desk called it earlier in the evening, but the Associated Press waited until later. This is something that I think shocked a lot of people. Another key shock moment for Republicans was the New Jersey gubernatorial race, especially given the momentum that the Republican Jack Ciattarelli had gained in recent weeks against scandal-plagued Mikey Sherrill. And not just the U.S. Naval Academy cheating scandal, but also the really bizarre comments on not allowing parents to opt out of LGBTQ plus 2IA curriculum. How do you think Americans are going to respond to a really unexpected, if there was to be an unexpected loss yesterday evening in New Jersey?
Yeah, I think Americans are shocked. And I think, as you noted, Mikey Sherrill's comment there was extremely shocking, but it also shouldn't shock us because this is what the Democrats really believe in their hearts. They believe in transgender ideology. Over and over and over again, we see them pushing this on the American people. And when she says she doesn't believe parents should opt out, I think that was a moment of clarity. And this is one of the things, and what we're seeing in these results from one state after another, right. Democrats leveraged the shutdown, they leveraged DOJ, they leveraged a lot of things to push their base out to the polls. And these people are angry about Trump and they're going to vote. And that was what Democrats capitalized on.
Capitalizing on the shutdown. When you look at the Virginia election, very huge. Talking about Nova, we hit on that with former Attorney General of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli, yesterday in the broadcast. New Jersey, of course, situation. We covered that broadly with Scott Jennings. We also touched on what the entire nation seemed to be looking at as a different kind of bellwether, the bellwether of the future of the Democratic Party. That found its home when you had really three Democrat candidates and one Republican. Of course, Eric Adams dropping out before the election. You had Zoran Mamdani, the young pro-jihadi, pro-socialism, young progressive candidate. Then you had the older kind of establishment, Andrew Cuomo. And then finally, Curtis Sliwa for the Republicans. Were you expecting the Mamdani campaign to actually pull the majority of the votes in this election. A lot of people thought that Cuomo and Sliwa, if you would have put their votes together, me included, by the way, that would have beaten Mamdani. The polls seem to suggest that. What are your thoughts?
I think Mamdani had the momentum going into this election, and you can't, when you have a candidate who is dominating the media coverage, who is the constant talk of the town, and this is something. I remember 9/11. I remember the September 11th attacks, waking up that morning, seeing the footage of the World Trade Center falling down from the New York City skyline, and the idea that New Yorkers would elect not only a democratic socialist, but also an outspoken Muslim. And by the way, I know a lot of patriotic Muslims. I don't think Islam overall is the problem, but when you have a Muslim who is obsessed with Israel, who is not willing to condemn the phrase, globalize the intifada, that kind of Muslim, that should be setting off alarm bells in the Big Apple. And the fact that he prevailed really, I think, is a condemnation. I don't know where New York City goes from here. I think, the U-Haul, the U-Haul industry in New York City is going to have a big spike after this election.
There are a lot of pundits who have pointed out the critical failure of the Cuomo campaign to actually address a point of unity with Republicans against the bulwark of, like you said, the radical Islam, but also the radical socialism that has taken hold of the young progressives. He brought forward a lot of utopian visions that younger people in New York wanted to see, in affordability, in the idea of freezing certain things, making police more about mental health, when Cuomo had his last minute chance to address it. Instead, Cuomo focused on saying, well, you and me, we all like the economy, as we saw in a clip earlier yesterday on Fox News.
The thing is just about your approach. When it comes to no cash bail, when it comes to keeping prisons open to put prisoners like Rikers Island, when it comes to sanctuary cities, are you open to maybe taking a different take, maybe like towards what Eric Adams was doing towards the end of his term, as opposed to the severe take that we're seeing with other mayors like the mayor of Chicago?
Yeah. Well, look, cashless bail, they like to talk about. That was a law that I passed 6 years ago. It's been changed 4 times since then. So it's a totally different law now than it was then. In terms of Rikers Island, I think we should rebuild it. I think it should stay open where it is rather than building county jails all across the board. And look, public safety is job one. I want to hire 5,000 more police, 1,500 people in the subway, 1,500 police officers in the subway system. That's the first priority for me. And that fits with Republicans. I want to lower taxes because we're losing companies, we're losing people. That fits with the Republicans. I want to pass a property tax cap on homeowners, which I did in the rest of the state when I was governor. That fits with the Republicans. Fiorella LaGuardia said about being mayor, there's no Democratic or Republican way to pick up the garbage, right? It's a functional, operational job. And they know I know how to make government work. If you live in New York, I built a new LaGuardia Airport, new Kennedy Airport, new Moynihan Train Hall, new Kosciuszko Bridge. I get things done. And you need a mayor who actually gets things done.
This did not resonate with voters. In fact, it appears to have come off as weak, as mewling, wishy-washy. That's the Democrat establishment. Does it even have the energy to hold on after this kind of a loss?
No, I think the real Democrat establishment is the woke ideology. I think you see it through their NGOs, their apparatus, and so much of the money and the strength that they have in their apparatus is on the radical left side. And so this is what you saw when Joe Biden,
you mean like CARE, like Linda Sarsour pointing out that CARE funded the Zoran Mamdani campaign. Roll that clip, producer Nick.
Right now, I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just, that it's random that Zahran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zahran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zahran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country, high net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zahran PAC in New York.
Yeah, the woke establishment is they propped up Joe Biden and they used him as a placeholder to get all of their agenda through. But what we're seeing now is they need a new generation, a new face, in order to control their party, to push this ideology through our institutions. They've already got the march through the institutions. Now they want the full flowering. And this is where the radicalism of someone like Zoran Mamdani really illustrates where the Democratic Party is going and why we have to be vigilant against every threat that this woke ideology poses. Because again and again, we are going to see gender ideology. We're going to see radical Islam. We're going to see communism dressed up as democratic socialism. All of these things are going to come up over and over and over again. And the Republican
really the over
Party,
and over and over again in this instance really does mean over and over again, whether it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whether it's Zoran Mamdani, whether it's Omar Feta, whether it's Jasmine Crockett, whether it's Ilhan Omar, whether it's Ayanna Pressley, whether it's Andre Carson, on and on indeed. Jay Jones, now the Attorney General of the state of Virginia, or in this case, the Attorney General-elect. Right on the point, right on the money. Tyler O'Neill, our excellent and esteemed senior analyst, reporter, writer extraordinaire, author of The Woktopus as well. Thanks for joining us for an unusual Top News in 10.
Thanks for having me.
You can check out the link to Tyler O'Neill's The Woktopus in the description below, where also you can subscribe to the Tony Kinnett Cast and join us tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern for a roundup of the day's news and nonsense. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.